I ask for your hand in marriage. A Percabeth Royal Alternate Universe Fanfiction, Part 2. In truth, Percy's head was reeling, and he was not happy with what his parents had just asked of him, or more so what Annabeth had signed him up for. He wasn't planning on being a bachelor forever. No, that would quite literally be impossible, as he was a firstborn and the only child, monarch of a thriving kingdom. He had to have an heir. "Why would you do this to me?" Percy whined when they got to into the hallway and headed back to his room. Annabeth rolled her stormy gray eyes. "Do you want the traditional version? Because believe me, you'd hate it." She shot back. "I don't like this," Percy said like a child, planting himself onto his bed. He crossed his arms and pouted. Annabeth sat next to him and allowed him to lean his head on her shoulder. "I know, but you'll find a princess you like, I promise," she said, wrapping a hand under his head to rub his cheek like she did back when they were kids and Percy was so stressed about running the kingdom one day. "Why can't you just do the things?" he asked. "Oh my god. We literally just went over this with you like 3 times. How else am I supposed to drill it into your head? This is like the one thing that I cannot help you with," she groaned. Percy made a whining noise when she stopped moving her hand. She restarted. "You usually help me with everything," he pointed out. Annabeth gave him a tightened smile. "I know. This is a first." They were silent for a couple of minutes. Annabeth was probably thinking of everything she had to do to prepare for the princesses and how it would add to her workload and previous other things. And Percy was just whining like a baby about how his best friend couldn't help him with this situation. A rogue part of his mind shouted to ignore all of the rules and everything else and make everyone agree for her to take over queenly duties for however long it would take for him to find a girl that he really truly liked. But he couldn't listen to that part of his head, no matter how much he wanted to. "Would you like to hear more about the plan? Or about the princesses you will be meeting?" Annabeth asked gently. Percy nestled his head into her hair and whined. "No," he said like a baby. He felt her head nod. "All right. Do you want a blue cookie to feel better and then go swimming?" she asked. Percy grinned. God, she knew him so well. Annabeth's tinkling laughter shook through his ears. "I thought so," she said with amusement in her voice. Percy pouted at her like a child. She laughed. How did she know him so well? It was an hour later that Percy found himself surrounded by 3 of his top 5 favorite things in the entire world. Annabeth, water, and blue cookies. All that was missing was his mother and his sword Riptide. Because, you know, a normal person lovingly names their sword Riptide. "I feel better already," he commented with a smile on his face. He leaned his arms onto the floaty in which Annabeth was laying on, careful not to tip it over. Ironically, Annabeth was not a fan of being in the water. "Well, you are a simple creature," she teased, smirking behind her sunglasses. "Anytime that water and blue cookies is involved, you're automatically happy." Percy smiled, but then a thought rushed into his head that made him frown. It felt unnatural. "What is it?" she asked him quickly, reading the expression. Percy sighed. "Nothing, just with the whole queen thing, it's all coming so soon. Ruling, I mean, sure, I have like 12 years or something, but like, it feels like it's all coming so close. And honestly, I'm kind of scared," he admitted. Annabeth put a consoling hand on his arm. "I know. The future, it can be scary. ruling, sure, it's big, but that's just because you haven't done much with it yet. We're going to ease you in. Our kingdom has the best power transfer of all the other kingdoms because we prepare you years in advance. So by the time it comes, you won't be scared. You're not going to be alone. For one, you're going to have your future wife with you, and she'll be learning the ropes too. And two, I'll be here to hold you steady until you get there, she said. It was supposed to be comforting. He was supposed to feel better by hearing that, but in actuality, it just made him sad and a little bit more nervous. No, Percy shook his head. The water flew off his dark locks. Royal overseers only help until the monarch turns 25. I still have like 5 years to go without you. All alone, he pointed out. Annabeth brushed a hand down his face softly. Her face had a gentle smile on it. You're not going to need me when you're 25. You'll be ready. You won't be alone. You'll have your queen. You'll have learned enough to not need my guidance or anything, she said. Percy frowned deeper. It felt so foreign on his face. He was normally smiling, without another thought and care in the world. But what if I want your help and presence and annoying nags? Percy said. You won't. She sounded so certain. It was as if Percy could just close his eyes and fully believe that once he was 25, he wouldn't need his best friend's help. But he did. Percy knew that. How can you be so sure? Because you'll have all of that from your queen. But what about my best friend? Annabeth raised a brow at him and smiled in an amused way. Do you really think it's that easy to get rid of me? You're stuck with me for life. Percy smiled at that. Normally, he was the one to tell her that, so it was really nice to hear it back. And of course, he didn't mind being stuck with her for all of the rest of his life. Sure, she nagged at him every second of the day, out of love, of course. Was insanely organized and had a conniption whenever she walked into his room on a lazy day, and, was absolutely terrifying. But that was what made Annabeth his best friend. Percy didn't want to change a single thing about her. All of those annoying things were just reasons to love her and her uniqueness, and all of her uniqueness. Yes, but no. You won't be my royal overseer, he said with a sad sigh. He couldn't imagine doing anything without Annabeth guiding him, or at least standing by his side. Her gray eyes watched him seriously without a word. It was mildly intimidating, but it was also comforting. A sharpened gaze was how Annabeth showed that she was listening. In truth, Percy was growing flustered and scared at all the rules he had to abide by, and annoyed by how he couldn't just have his best friend and the entire world just help him out with this one thing. Because you will have your queen. God, how many times do I have to say this? The blonde-haired girl said with a laugh. Percy tilted his head up so his cheek rested on the floaty. He was not feeling very happy, to be totally honest and upfront. I hate this. In like 7 years, maybe less, you're no longer even going to help me like this. I'm gonna have to depend on someone else. Someone who I don't even know the name of right now. I don't want that. I don't want to depend on you. I already put my life in your hands multiple times, and each and every time, I did that with complete trust. How am I supposed to put that kind of trust in someone else? I only know them for like 6 or so years, and then they're gonna have to control the kingdom with me? How can I trust someone that much if they aren't you? Percy ground into the plastic. You won't even live in the castle anymore, he said, with a sinking feeling in his heart. There wasn't going to be any sleepovers in each other's rooms, or secret sneak-outs to the roof of the castle to look at the stars and talk about unimportant things. While overseers, after all, didn't stay in the castle once the monarch was betrothed, there was no reason to. What are you gonna do when you're 25? I'll plan your wedding and then go find a different job. I'm sure it's not that hard to get hired when you've already worked for the royal family. Don't worry about me. Are you still gonna be the godmother of my heirs? No, that has to be a noble at the very least. You know that. But you promised. Yeah. When I was like 10, before I had this job, and back when I was a homeless orphan. She cringed at the last word. Percy took her hand and squeezed it reassuringly. I didn't know any better, or any of the rules, but I do now. I'm not a noble. I can't be your godmother. I can't be the godmother to your children. Percy sighed sadly. She squeezed his hand in response. A rare and gentle smile made its way onto her face. It shone for only him. In total dorkiness. Percy liked to call it her Percy's smile. She never smiled at anyone else that way. The smile, it was soft and loving and sweet and understanding and only for him. You're going to be fine. It's all going to work out. You're going to meet one of the princesses and fall head over heels in love with her, and you're going to trust her more than anyone else in the world, even me, Annabeth said. She looked at him evenly in the eyes. She looked so sure. He wasn't. You're not going to need anyone but her, okay? Percy couldn't give a response without outright lying to her or telling her a truth that she'd just start a lecture over again, so he just settled for nodding. Plus, he had made himself a promise to not lie to her, so the former was already kicked out. You're going to be fine, Annabeth said, pushing down his damp hair. Percy sighed and nodded. He hoped she'd be right, though he had a feeling that he'd always need her, for any situation, for anything, despite what everyone else was saying, despite what she was saying. And in the situation, he didn't know if he wanted to be right or wrong.